I am not a monk. Seriously, wear a monk costume one time and they call you a monk. Ah, yes, I'm meddling and rather dashing, but a monk? Seriously? Me? Course not. No! Ridiculous. Where do these rumors come from? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all identities, sexualities, and more, and welcome back, me old Chinas, to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is The Time Meddler. So, without further ado, let's get right into the mix. Before we get into the Time Meddler, it's about time that we just quickly catch you up on this character called the Meddling Monk. Yes, my brother. Yes, so the Meddling Monk is a character who's one of the Doctor's people. Of course, this meaning that being a Time Lord, that they will have more than one face. And over the course of the show, the Meddling Monk so far has only had one incarnation on screen, but thanks to expanded media, we know now that there are three other incarnations of the monk. One being played by Rufus. So one being Rufus Hound, the very original being Peter Butterworth. Graham Garden also plays another incarnation of the monk. And finally, Gemma Whelan plays the nun, the first female incarnation of this character. Oh, back to the story of the Time Meddler. The Doctor and his friends, Vicky and Stephen, arrive back in the 12th century, if I'm right. I want to say 12th, maybe 16th. The point is, they arrive at the time of William the Conqueror, so 1066. To Purves' character, Stephen, doesn't quite believe that they've gone back in time. He doesn't believe that a spaceship could even do that. He doesn't believe that the spaceship he's on is even a time machine. And Vicky, throughout this whole story, keeps doing her very best to convince him. But, sadly to avail to make it even harder on her, Stephen comes across a watch from the very far future. That, if they have time travelled, shouldn't exist. Before that, the Doctor picks up a Viking helmet, and he begins to try and tell Stephen the history of the Vikings. To no avail, and to Stephen's slight stupidity, the Doctor finds himself in a bitter argument with Stephen over the fact that it is the genuine article. Stephen points out that anyone could have laid those, and the Doctor mocks him and says, "What, do you think space cows came here and left a helmet? Space Vikings." Meanwhile, elsewhere, a very mysterious time meddler is meddling with the events of history. He is trying to attempt to disrupt the flow of time by averting the course of history and rewriting the whole history of the Battle of Hastings. Time Meddler being the meddling monk. The Doctor goes off from his two companions and goes to investigate, and upon doing so, he finds himself in the clutches of the monk. The monk locks the Doctor up and tries to convince him to help him avert the course of history. The Doctor, "You can't change history, not one line," tries to explain to the monk exactly why doing so would not be a good thing. All the things that it would avert, all of the things it would destroy, all of the things that would not happen. The monk tries to plead with him. "But I know Harold would be a good king, Doctor. I can just feel it in my heart," the monk would say. "You're still not right," the Doctor would say. still trying to prove to the monk that what he's doing is wrong. But the monk is complacent and does not listen to the doctor. The doctor, knowing that this is the case, decides on other matters and begins to plot a way to get at the monk and disrupt his plan once and for all. Elsewhere, the doctor's friends are trying to find out about his whereabouts, but nothing seems to be coming up a turn. Well, that's until they approach the village, and a nice young lady points out to them that he went up to the monastery. She says it's strange, though, that there's a monk up there, but she doesn't seem to see any of the others, as if there are no others. The pair of them become suspicious, and as they approach the monastery, they soon learn that everything at the monastery is not as it seems, and indeed, this monk who denies seeing an old man approach the monastery has other intentions. They also, by the time they break into the monastery, learn that there aren't any other monks, and he is indeed the only one. He seems to have put a record on a loop, tricking those who approached church/monastery into believing that there are more people inside than there are at prayer time. Vicky suddenly stumbles upon the monk's TARDIS by mistake. By entering it, she soon realizes that it's exactly like the Doctor's ship. The Doctor then points out later in the story to her that that's because it is like the Doctor's ship. It's from the same place, the same time, and the same planet. The monk is one of the Doctor's people. But this isn't all that Vicky discovers, and Stephen. Stephen and Vicky begin to realize that the monk has plans to avert the course of history. They find his diary and find out that this is not the first time he has meddled in history. He has jumped between different periods in time, been worshipped as a god, seen as a martyr, and above all, has disrupted and intervened and made things be invented sooner than they should be invented. But what he's about to do in 1066 is way worse than anything he has already done. Still tries to make the monk see sense, but sadly, this doesn't happen, and the monk begins to make his plan come to fruition. He begins to plant lighting beacons on the cliff tops, letting the Vikings know where to land, letting them know where to conquer and begin their invasion. Local people in the village are attacked and find themselves in a mountain of disarray. The men in the village go hunting for the Vikings in hopes of overtaking them and taking back their own land. After realizing his plan has failed, the monk begins to head back to his ship in hopes of escape. But when he arrives, he finds a message. The monk begins to mock the message on top of the stone tablet, thinking that the doc is an arrogant fool who believes that he can truly make the monk see sense. The monk begins to mock him. "Ah, doctor, help me," he mutters out, but then eventually he begins to open the doors of his TARDIS and realizes the doctor has nicked a piece of the dematerialization circuit, a key piece that keeps the ship in the right dimensions. This causes the monk's TARDIS to shrink down to a neutral, small size, a size so small the monk can't even get inside of his own time machine. Frustrated, the monk starts to curse and curse at his predicament, claiming that he will get the doctor back for this. So, the Time Meddler, what is my opinion of this story? This story is a great introduction to one of the Doctor's people. It's a great introduction to the cause and effect of time travel. It is also a great establishment of the effects of the change of history can have on the future and the past itself. It also proves why you shouldn't meddle with current events that must always stay the same. Monk is such an incredibly funny and relatable character to the things that people would just generally do if they had the ability to time travel. The Doctor's pointing out an educational message throughout this story is also a great message to people on history and Vikings and basically anything to do with 1066 is very well delivered in this story by Bill Hartnell. Peter Purves does a brilliant job, especially as this is his first story after the events of the chase. His character development, even just from this single story, is fantastic. I like how he's the clueless one, and Vicky's kind of played off like the sister character in this story. So she heavily has to kind of be the stronghold keeping things together. Whereas in the past, in a story such as The Rescue, she was more of the innocent being introduced to this massive universe and all of time travel. But now she has the ability to pass on everything she's learned to Stephen. The way that the Vikings and the villagers are handled in this story is very good as well. And also, this was a great introduction for me to mead, which I've recently tried, which is like a really nice spiced drink. I highly recommend it if you've never tried it out. My personal favorite is Loki's Curse. Loki's Curse is a really nice mead. Just putting it out there. Overall, this story was brilliant, and for that reason, I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10. I love the monk. I really hope that someday in the future we get the meddling monk back into Doctor Who, and especially in the modern series. Just because of he's so funny, he's so realistic, and he's so relatable. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, stay beautiful. And I'm not a monk. For now.